Hey, everybody. We are very lucky and very excited to be welcoming this beautiful human being to our podcast. Please, everybody, this is the wonderful Alison Asher. Thank you for being here.
You are welcome. Glad to be here.
I know we've been trying to get Alison on our stage, on our platforms now for probably, we said, since the very first one. So 2015, so almost 7 years. And unfortunately, between kids and challenging in dates and all that kind of stuff, Alison has got a pretty hot schedule, so she couldn't get here. But now we've finally managed to get her get her on stage this year at the IN8 Summit, and we are so pumped. So for those that don't know much about you, Alison, can you give us a bit about your background and then who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, obviously I'm secretive, I'm like a spy, aren't I? Very elusive. Can't attend the summit because I've got things on. I'm just up at the sunny coast. I've graduated actually the year after your brother Simon had a practice in Middle Park, which Simon and Jen actually bought from me back in the day. Wow. Then I locumed for a number of years all around the country in some of the fabulous big practices that are around the place, and eventually ended up about 20 years ago settling here on the Sunshine Coast. So I worked down at an office at Kiwana with Mark Postles and the gang, so as an associate too, which was challenging and different in its own way. Learning about comparison, competing, but also working together. That was a fun thing to do. A bit different to when you're the queen in your own practice. And but then a number of years ago, after I had kids, my little daughter Coco gets blood transfusion, so I decided to bring it all home. So I'm just in a really, well, you can't see it in the background, I've blurred it out for you, but in a tiny little practice, just me on the lonesome and just getting it done. So cool. Been doing that for now about 13 years. Just a little one lady show. Well, a couple of pairs of hands and that's it.
A couple of pairs of pretty amazing hands, I must add, because once again, you're being quite humble there, because Alison's energy is electric. I've seen her at the Concordia, I've seen her in Fiji on fire, and she is like a pocket rocket on fire, on steroids. Gabby, my wife, said, Sam, we just have to get Alison there. She is so in brand, in vogue. She's like the perfect person to be on our stage. So I can't wait to have you there. I've seen you on, I think at Concordia one year, you had high heels about that big, and you were rocking it out on stage and doing your thing, moving, jamming, swearing, popping around, doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. And that's kind of what we're all about, being true to yourself. So this obviously, tell us more about that. So with your, I suppose, charisma and excitement, you have been speaking on many platforms. You've been coaching chiros for many years with Quest. Mark Postle's back, for very, very well. So tell us, what are your thoughts around the idea of, being true to yourself, but then also in the world of seminars and coming together, especially, post lockdowns and all that chaos? Why do you reckon this is an important time of the year to kind of do these things?
Well, I don't know what you guys are seeing, but from what I jumped into chiropractic right into DG, that was we'd get on a bus and all the students and we'd head on up to the Gold Coast, and we would watch these amazing speakers. And so there was this idea that they were up on the stage and we want to aspire to that, whether John Hinwood or Mark Fossils or, these kind of guys. But also some of the real heartfelt ones that would really touch your heart, with their amazing stories. But the cool thing that happens in these events, it's not just an intellectual thing that you get through watching this on, whether you do it on Zoom or whatnot. It's the stuff that happens after. It's the stuff that happens in the bar. And you mentioned Fiji and Fire, and that was a really, really cool thing that was set up by the New Zealand fellows a number of years ago, because you have an opportunity to actually interact with each other. So I think the stage is fabulous, and you get the pearlers, you get people, my talk will be, half an hour or so. And so I get to coalesce and profess, being part of a professional, to profess and bring my love and my heart, my joy. But then we get to deconstruct that afterwards. And I can be challenged by people saying, well, what did you mean by that? Or tell me about that reference. And that's something that I think we've been missing. I spoke at the Edinburgh lectures, not last week and the weekend before, but we chose to do it via Zoom. And so then for the rest of the evening, Ross was sending me videos of what everybody was doing. And I stayed up all night, not only watching the seminar, but watching them all partying afterwards. And for me, I'm going to say that that's a big part of it. It's, I'll be in heels, I'll be jump dancing up the front. That's the kind of thing that I think that's why we want to get to an in-person event, because there's something magical that happens when the speakers leave the stage. Yeah. Just at Concordia the other day, Martin Harvey and I spoke back to back from each other, and we couldn't wait just to sit down together and say, hey, how funny, we're the old dudes here now, and all the young guns, and Adam Sheriff and those guys got up, but we were the old dudes but there was something that was really lovely in that community and being embraced by people. And I think that it just doesn't translate across the screen. We try our best, but it's not the same. And that's why we want to get in person. And look, I hate hugs, but I know that there's going to be hugging involved. I know people are going to touch me. So whatever, for the weekend on Bali's, I'll handle it.
Oh yeah, sure. I was going to say you hate hugs. That's the first. I love that fact. I mean, as you said, like the coming of the new age, I'm the same as you. I feel like as if I'm one of the cool, young, funky ones. And I've been in the kind of whole like, yeah, man, dancing on stage. And hey, all you young kids, like, let's be cool together. And they're like, hey, Sam, you are so old, bro. Like
you're not cool.
And so we got the same thing now. I've had quite a few of the young punks. We've got a few younger speakers this year that I honestly feel I'm their age until they just shake me like, man, you don't say like, I'm cool. The fact you profess that you're cool means that you're so not cool. And then luckily there's some guys out there, like obviously Simon and Jen and Sonia, they have your vintage, my sisters. And I have got this confession that as soon as you're one day older than me, you're really bloody old. So that's kind of why we've got these.
Rude.
Oh, totally. I'm sorry, but that's the way I roll. But no, from that, tell us more. So you've been at Edinburgh Lectures. I know the value of being in a group like this is going to be cool and important. In your experience, why do you think there is a value for students or even for principals to bring their teams along to events like the IN8 Summit?
Well, just before we got on, I drew out, I love a bit of woo-woo, talking about doing whatever you want. I drew a woo-woo card and I've got this one here and it says remarkable. And inside it said, life holds no limits to the possibilities that lie within you. And I reckon that bringing your team along is something that awakens something in them, because we've got these limits that we place. We've got these frames that we draw, and especially with the people that we surround ourselves with, you know, and Jim Rohn will say the thing, you know, you become like the 5 people you hang out with. Sometimes we just hang out with people because that's where we are, and we can be limited by the possibility of their ability to dream. And in coaching, one of the things that I love to be able to do is to see something in that person and hold them to a greater account and to have a greater possibility than they can see themselves. That's the idea of coaching in my mind, to be able to shine a light and say, I can see this for you. And I think coming to something like IN8 Summit, where you're going to have the big dreamers and the big action takers as well, but also the people who may be feeling that they've got some limitations, especially with all the rules and regulations that have been here lately. We can actually now maybe break a couple of those down and start to really look at what limitations we're placing on ourselves. There's external ones, but where are we actually in the cage of our own mind, and how can we actually bring that through? That's what I want to see. So I might have actually just, by drawing this woo-woo card, I might have just written a speech there. So we'll see. It might change 100 times before then, but I think something about this limitation might be pretty cool to work through. And I think that's how we bust through it. We get around people who are doing something that we want to do, and we mirror them. We have a look.
I just love that. Like you said before, Sam, what's the theme for this year? I said, we don't run with themes at the moment. And just your adaptation, which is kind of one word that I think us Chiro should almost don as like our major form of communication, is adaptating to life. And you went, okay, cool. Grabbed your woo-woo card, came out, and went, let's discuss this. And I just loved how fast you could pivot on that. And I totally agree with you. The fact that, there's limitations in our heads and that can predict our future. And why I asked you to mention that about bringing your teams and getting involved with these events is I just know this event is going to be next level, which is why this year, I believe you might not know this year, Alison, but we've actually got a guarantee this year, because all of my close friends, Adam Sheriff and the guys said, like, Sam, you're crazy for doing this. But I just know that the quality of our speakers, the need of having a face-to-face catch up is going to be such an important springboard for so many practices, that I just know that every single person on the Sunday afternoon is going to be like, holy shit, where was that? I'm so happy, which is why now, if you are not happy on the Monday and you paid your money, I'm going to give you money back to you, because I know there won't be one person, because I'm that confident this year on how good it's going to be. But like, in saying that, it's just kind of like, I love hearing your experience and your passion and what you want to bring to stage. And can you maybe, with your 20 plus years experience in practice, is there one or two or even a couple of amazing miracles that you can think of, that could be clients, that could be communication points, that even like little old you, Alice, with little hands are kind of going, I've just touched someone or something, and this has happened. Can you think of any kind of small little examples of brilliance that you can kind of share with us?
Well, I suppose for me, coming from that sort of what used to be called the straight background, a lot of my stuff is not really about measuring, the impact on what people are like musculoskeletally. It's more from that reconnection stuff. right? I'm all about connection, reconnecting man the spiritual with man the physical. And I believe that we have, obviously we've got neuroplasticity, but it's this relationship to the environment. You mentioned before that, I suppose it's using the pivot word, but that ability, that malleability that we all have, and we can train on it. We get to choose that stuff. So my miracle stories are all, overnight successes that have taken, 25 years. It's the long-term relationships that I have with my people, where I start to see where they bring in their kids and their grandkids, and we get to see what happens to lives that have been continually touched by chiropractic. Yeah. So, I was talking to a girl the other day, and she's pregnant with her first, and I was adjusting her since she was, I don't know what, maybe she was 5. And we were talking about a time when she had glandular fever back in the day, years and years ago. And she had possibly the most dramatic glandular fever you've ever seen, with all of these big, things coming out. And we checked and adjusted her every day for a week. And by the end of the week, it was transformative. And so it looked like an overnight success. And of course, all the kids in her school who got glandular fever, they all went, well, go to the chiro because that fixes glandular fever. But she'd been coming in for 10 years before then. Yeah. So that ability of her body to adapt that happened over the space of many, many years, we got to see this miraculous healing from glandular fever, but it wasn't really that at all. Yeah. It wasn't even that exciting. It was just a whole bunch of things it's the consistency. And I think that's sometimes what we can forget that. And because I'm an old bird and I've seen it happen for so many years, that's where I get to. It's just like that consistency. And it's the consistency with showing up to events and being there and being open to possibilities and looking at your own limits and seeing where you can expand. It's the consistency of showing up in practice and doing, probably what might look to the outside, the same old, and yet we know that we're building to a life of magnificence. And that's, for me, what the whole juice is about. That's why I do it.
Man, you are just on fire. I love that. You can't teach that stuff. And that's kind of where your experience, I think, is just going to speak so much volumes on stage, because it's you own it. And you can try, and a lot of the young guys who've got out on stage now, or that are coming out of practice, that are saying, oh, but how do you get their attention? And what's that system? And what's that thing you can do? Even after many years of adjusting, you just got that certainty where you're just like, yep, I'm going to adjust you. And I know that your body's going to adapt better. You're going to be a better mom, a better dad, a better lover, a better friend, a better football player, a better, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to do better at, because you can adapt and pivot faster. And you own that.
And it's back to that connection though, it's back to that thing. And you said before, there's a thing that we play called the linking game, where you just grab two things and you make a link between them. So it evolves a neuroplasticity, or an ability for your brain to actually grab things and actually make them into cool stories. And that's the table talk. That's the $1 million thing, is that you make links between that person who's laying on your table. I'm pointing to the table, by the way, everyone. The person who's laying on the table and the links to their life. Yeah. So you get clues by what they tell you. They say, oh yeah, something, what are you doing after this? Sounds like idle chit chat, but they say, I'm going to watch the kids play soccer. So all of a sudden you start to realize what their values might be. So then we make a link between what we're doing here on the table and the kids playing soccer, and her, the mum, if it was a mum, watching the soccer, and what that does for her in making her being able to focus. But then you can make another link between, wow, isn't it interesting, some of the things we're seeing about what happens to the muscle power with Kelly Holt's latest stuff with the power and the blood perfusion. So we start to make these links for people, and the more links, these golden threads that can come out from our table to the world, that's how we make it real for people, rather than it being about whether or not you get a headache or a back pain. Yeah, it's about making these links. And the more of those we can make, the richer. It's like Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together. We can do the same thing with our people on our table. Let's make lots of links, and that's where an event that you guys are bringing together, chiros from everywhere, imagine the links we can make. And you said before, you can't teach that, but you know what? Everyone can have it. Everyone can have it because I've got it and I'll give it freely. So come up close, rub up against me, not too much because I don't like hugs, but there's no reason why, if someone else has got it energetically, you can have it. You just got to want it. Open up and it's yours.
Yeah, it's cool things. Your energy is just electric, and I get told I've got lots of energy, and I'm actually vibing off you right now, which is so cool. When we're going to come together in a few weeks' time, a few months' time, it's going to be super electric. And one thing I want to kind of mention right now, when you were mentioning that about, I'm going to say the word certainty, but you didn't actually use that word, but you just oozed it. And a lot of the students out there, or even young grads that are going to be at the seminar, or they're listening to this podcast, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, I get that. But what is that ABC's 1, 2, 3 formula that I can use in my left brain to kind of have that communication with that mom that's going to have the kids playing soccer? But the cool thing about being at the IN8 Summit this year, we're making sure that we have the perfect amount of speakers on stage that are going to ooze it, that you just almost just sit there and just kind of receive the sun rays from Alison going and download from her energy. Then yes, we're going to have some other guys that might give you some more, left brain thinking stuff. But the good thing is that this thing called chiropractic, it works, and all of us are saying that. So the best thing that you can almost do is just borrow the conviction that someone like Alison has got. And like hearing you talk now, like I've got a bit of experience, but compared to you, not as much. And I'm literally feeling your vibration, your excitement, your energy. I know when I go back at this afternoon adjusting, I'm going to be a better adjuster for this conversation. And the same thing can be said for the IN8 Summit. By just being there on Monday morning, even if you haven't put any notes down on your page, you will be a better version of yourself because you've downloaded it from those guys next to you. So yeah, I think it's a very valid and huge point. Yeah, tell me some other things. Like this year, you've been up in Queensland, you've been a little bit sheltered, but you still had some of the chaos. What are some of the things that you are most looking forward to in general about being in person again at a big seminar with your peeps?
Oh, well, I get to buy a new outfit, so I get to get some heels. I do love an opportunity to buy some new shoes. Haven't had much use for them, especially not on the Sunshine Coast. I went to Concordia earlier this year, and I'd forgotten, to be honest. I thought that I was okay because you know how you learn to deal with, we're adaptable. We go, oh yeah, right. I probably don't really need in-person events so much, I know it all, that kind of thing you can almost feel like.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you realize that something shifts in yourself, and you realize that you take something from everyone who speaks, and you don't even know what you're going to get. I mean, like we're going to talk about Apostles before, he'd always say, well, set your intentions, figure out what it is that you want, and you may well do that, right? But I'm going to say do that and something better. So, like when we make a wish and say, I wish for this or something better, remembering that we're in a bit of benevolent universe, it's going to deliver. So get out there and maybe, you scour through and have a look at the lineup and think who you might want to get up close to after the seminar and pick their brains about different things. I know I definitely did that as a student. That was where I cut my teeth in chiropractic, as I went and I offered to buy chiropractors drinks. And of course it was the other way around. They ended up buying me one, but offered to buy them drinks just to pick their brains just for a minute, just to get and ooze and, take in some of that stuff. People like Michael Troy, who's probably an unassuming and quite a lovely, quiet man. But if you get him going, he's got some, he'll be on stage, but he have some real gems in there. So I think that that's something that you can't get that anywhere else. It's not the same. You can buy their seminars, you can, I suppose you can do coaching, but it's still everyone's on fire when they get to one of these events. The speakers are better when they're in the group together, and the themes emerge and everyone raises up. Like how often did we see that in Fiji? We didn't know what the theme was. We'd get there, Ash would make one up and we'd all go, oh my goodness, our speeches already coincide with that. Exactly. Right? So already we're all getting in the whatever, in the matrix, the vortex or whatever. We're all and people will be getting ideas already about what they're going to do, and that they'll come to pass as we get there. But allow yourself to get in it, like you want to get in the vibe with people, just say yes. Like book your tickets now, because what that means is that you've made the commitment to yourself, you made the commitment to your team, and you all know you're going, and then you can just wait for it to unfold.
Yeah.
Like I think the earlier you commit to it, and how often do you have that with a practice member? If you've got someone who said they've got a headache, and the second they make the appointment, they're due in next week, but they say, I'll bring it forward this week, so I've got a headache. They make the appointment and they start feeling better immediately.
Exactly.
Right? The healing starts. Yeah, so totally. Why can't this vibe start? You want to feel lifted up. You want to feel more certainty. You want to feel, I don't know, more success in practice, however you define that. Book the tickets and start to download now. Why not?
Could not agree more. And from that, I was kind of getting goosebumps when you're mentioning that to me, because for the listeners, I apologize. I've had this a few times now where I'm a massive nerd. I like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and all those kind of shows. And when I kind of zone off, I don't want to watch a show that's real. I want to watch a show with make believe stuff in it, kind of to entertain me. And one of them that just keeps flushing into my head right now is when I went to go to Cow Jam one year, and I didn't know how big Cow Jam was. There's 4,000 or 5,000 people there, and literally, there's no hotels on the planet, I don't think, maybe there is, but I don't know of any that can host 4,000 or 5,000 people. So when there's 4,000 or 5,000 people, Billy D had 5 or 6 hotels that were full, and And then, so when we're all walking in, I could just remember droves of people just walking into Cow Gym. And I was like, oh, this is next level. Same thing at a football club when you watch a football team. I think because you're a Mad Doggy supporter, aren't you?
Yes, go the doggies.
Go Freo this year. I'm a Freo man, and we are up and about. So anyway, I figure that's not about the football. So the point is that I can remember at Cow Jam, this whole like huge drove of hotels just rushing into the venue. And now for the IN8 Summit this year, I've got this whole idea of like Lord of the Rings, where, you know, when like in the second one, I think the first one, when they're kind of crossing the bridge, and then Gandalf goes, "You shall not pass," and then I've literally got all those orcs coming down the walls, and they're all rushing to try and capture the Fellowship. If you're not a Lord of the Rings fan, I apologize, but I'm going to keep bringing this up because I feel like I want this shit for the IN8 Summit. I want Chiro, CA, students, like I want the bellboys and the concierges, and I want the whole Sydney people going like, holy shit, man, we've been in like have an infestation of chiropractors. Every club, everywhere you go, I want the streets of Sydney to be bustling with chiropractors. And if like they're not going to be excited for being a chiropractor or being exposed to chiropractic, then they should get out of our way. So that's kind of what I want to happen. And when you said yesterday, Olivia said to me, so are you Gandalf? And I was like, there's no freaking way I'm Gandalf, but the real Gandalf I think would be Mark Possum. So I reckon this year the Gandalf for the chiropractors in Australia would be good old Mark Possums, I reckon, without the beard and without the hair, the hat. So
well, he's got the Postle bit, isn't he? His name's actually Alan, so he's Mark A. Postle. So Alan Mark Postle. So he's actually the apostle. So there you go. He's better than Gandalf. He's some sort of religious fella.
Oh, there you go.
And you know the cool thing, you mentioned the footy, and there's a feeling, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
There's a feelings when the doggy's getting up, and you know, and you're all yelling out, ball, yes, at the same time, like the whole crowd does it at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's not the whole crowd; it's only half the crowd, because the other half hate the doggies, or in that moment they do at least. Yep. So this is more like us on common purpose, though. This is like Kathy Freeman in the 2000 Olympics, because I went to the Olympics and I wasn't at the stadium for Kathy Freeman's, but I was in a pub and people were hanging out everywhere, and there was silence, and then there was screaming, and then there was people cuddling each other that you didn't even know. We were mental for Kathy. Imagine being that mental for something that actually, I'm sorry, Kathy, I know it's a good race, but something that actually means something, that saves lives. That brings people back to who they're really supposed to be, gets them reconnected. Now that's a common purpose that we can get behind.
I had goosebumps and my whole spine just shivered then. That was just so true. Imagine that.
That's what we need. That's all we need, the Bulldogs in the grand final again.
Or Freo. I want to wreck that vibe.
But you're on me.
The Doggers again. Come on, man. Freo's a real team. And then we can imagine the IN8 Summit this year with all that. So I think we're on the same page. And I was just vibing hardcore then on that same thought, because our energy's high. Those people that have been doing well in practice, that have been struggling, that are a bit lost, that can't find their way, or that are like just looking forward to having a common theme. Because right now I'm going to totally forget about this whole lockdown thing, but families have had fights amongst families about their belief systems, and like, you know, Christmases and birthdays and baptisms and all those common things aren't there. But I'm going to guarantee you, we're not going to discuss any of that crap on stage, but you're going to be hanging around like-minded people. I don't matter if you're subluxation based, if you care about the innate intelligence, whatever you talk about, we know that you go to work every day, you put your hands on people and they have pretty profound results, and we thank you for your service. That's kind of, we're celebrating that awesome thing called chiropractic, which is where I just literally vibing, get super excited. So Alison, I could speak to you all day. And I just reckon that it's going to be such an exciting time in a few months. So thank you for finally saying yes, for finally getting on our platform. And we're kind of excited to see you on stage dancing. And just so you all know, I have actually organised and spoke to the security guards on the Saturday night, sorry. And Alison is a famous crowd surfer. So we actually might be able to.
Crowd surfer.
Well, we're going to get you up.
No, I'm at the front doing my jump dancing. I do it.
We will get her up crowd surfing this year. Don't you worry about that.
Sounds hideous.
No, it's awesome.
Old lady dies in, crowd surfing incident.
Old young rock star does backflip in crowd surf and pulls it off perfectly in heels. That's Anyway, thank you so much for being on this podcast. We can't wait to see you in a few months' time. And any parting words for our wonderful listeners?
No, but just that reminder, we were talking about all the big picture stuff and all the rest of it. But if you've been doing it tough, come with us. Just come in. Just let's come hold hands for a minute. We got you.
Yeah.
We got you.
Could not agree more. We got you. Any way we can help, we're there for you. So everybody, stay classy. Look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. And Alison, once again, thank you for being here and squeezing us in between your clients. And yeah, I can't wait to give you a hug in a few months' time. Even though you might not like it, I'm going to make sure I'll give you one anyway. So, all right, everybody, stay classy and look forward to the next podcast. And thanks again, Alison.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.